Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the web training titled Building Bridges, How Your Relationships Make a Difference. Today's training will focus on how you can take steps to create an ongoing relationship with your members of Congress and their staff. My name is Casey Troy. I am the Research and Advocacy Manager here at the National Brain Tumor Society. Joining me on this web training are my colleagues, Lainey Titus-Samont, our Director of Advocacy, and Lisa Peabody, our Public Policy Associate. We are also joined by the New Hampshire State Lead Advocate, Pattis. I have just a couple of housekeeping items to go through before we begin. To minimize background noise, we will have all participants muted. However, we do want this to be an interactive training, so please ask any questions you may have by utilizing the chat feature on your Zoom screen. Lainey will send a chat now, which will pop up on your screen and show where to look for the chat feature. Feel free to ask questions throughout the training, and we'll do our best to answer all questions following the main presentation during the Q&A session. If your question is not answered during the webinar, please email us at advocacy@braintumor.org. We will be recording this training, so it will be accessible online within a day or two. We will also email the link in a follow-up email to all of our advocates. Okay, on to the main topic and why we're here today. What is brain tumor public policy advocacy? First, we'd like to start by giving a brief review of public policy advocacy for the brain tumor community. If you haven't already viewed the Advocacy 101 Your Story Matters webinar, please find it on our website under the Advocate for Change in the section in the Tools and Training page. This will give a more in-depth description about public policy advocacy. We will cover some basics during this training. Brain tumor public policy advocacy includes a variety of activities which have the ultimate goal of making a positive change to public policies that affect the brain tumor community. You can see a couple of examples on this slide. Each time you make a phone call or send an email to your member of Congress to ask them to support a certain piece of legislation, you are participating in public policy advocacy. Your members of Congress need to hear from you as members of the brain tumor community because you are the experts. You know the challenges that face the brain tumor community, and your members of Congress need to learn from you what matters to their constituency and why. We at NBTS can support your expertise with facts and figures and detailed information about certain bills, but we can't tell your particular story. You're the expert of your life. And to utilize our own areas of expertise to make a difference in public policy, we first have to build meaningful relationships. Whether you attended Head to the Hill in Washington, D.C. this May or not, you can still work on building and reinforcing your relationship. Now is always the right time to take steps to build a collaborative working relationship. We do this by sharing our expertise with Congress, so that our members of Congress can ultimately understand the challenges that face the brain tumor community and how their vote on certain issues affects their community back home. We do this by serving as a resource. You have a base of knowledge that is specific to the brain tumor community that the member of Congress and their staff can draw upon. You are a partner to the congressperson, and when you establish yourself as a trusted resource, the member of Congress will be more likely to draw upon that base of knowledge. And we do this by continuing to be a positive connection to the brain tumor community for your member of Congress. You want to create a presence in your congressperson's mind by creating a pattern of communication and involvement that is personal. You connect with the member or their staff on a personal level by telling their story, finding a commonality, etc. That is consistent. Connect on a regular basis. Share relevant news stories, research discoveries, and opportunities to act on behalf of the brain tumor community so that your name and story are easily drawn upon within the member's mind. And that is positive. We want your members of Congress and their staff to want to talk to us and listen to our asks because we're positive, we're persistent, and we're professional. You become a trusted resource through these actions. Imagine this scenario. You work in a large office and have a colleague who you've made a connection with. You found that you have a few things in common and there's a history of you working well together. Maybe they even found out that you really like knock-knock jokes and when they hear a funny one, they immediately think of you and share the joke with you. If this colleague approaches you and asks you to take on a little extra work to help them out, you're likely to prioritize that over, say, someone from down the hall who you've never interacted with and ask the same favor. This is just natural human behavior. I'm not saying you'll disregard the second request from the unknown coworker, but my guess is you'll probably do your familiar coworker's favor first. Our goal is to become that familiar colleague that your members of Congress or their staffers enjoy working with, trust, and might go the extra mile for, even if it means listening to a corny knock-knock joke every once in a while. We've created this simple table to show how our relationships with our members of Congress are mutually beneficial. You have something to offer the member of Congress that they need to succeed in their role. You have this background that they really don't have. It's not only okay, but it's important to share your expertise and share your story firsthand. You know what's important in your life. Share it with your member of Congress. Our members of Congress are in place to act on behalf of their constituency. For them to effectively do their jobs, they need us to teach them about the unique challenges and experiences of brain tumor patients and families. To make informed decisions about legislation, our members of Congress need us to share our concerns and educate them on how a certain piece of legislation might affect the brain tumor community. On the right hand of this slide, you see what we need from our members of Congress. We need them to support brain tumor research funding and to support legislation that positively impacts the brain tumor community. You can see how these needs intertwine in our cooperative. Each relationship has a back and forth component to it, and our relationships with our members of Congress are no different. Let's work within this construct to make those changes that the brain tumor community desperately needs. We need better treatments and a cure, and an effective way to work toward that goal is to gain the support of the U.S. government. Let's go over a couple ways you might go about building these relationships. Meetings. You can attend one of the NBTS organized meetings at Head to the Hill or during August recess, or you can attend and schedule your own meeting at any time with your senators and representatives' local offices. Phone calls. You can find your senators and representatives' phone numbers by just Googling their names and finding their personal website. They'll have local and DC contact information. Either is fine. You can pick up the phone, state your name, location, and the issue that is important to you. Emailing. You can use the same method as above to find an email address if you're not already in contact with somebody at your member's offices. You can introduce yourself, share brain tumor information, and ask for support on a piece of legislation. Social media. You can find your members of Congress on social media and follow them so you're familiar with their policies and events they might host in your hometown. You can also tag your member of Congress to ask for their support on a certain issue or to thank them for taking a specific action to benefit the brain tumor community. Finally, you can attend in-district events that your members of Congress host. They will often host town hall meetings that you can attend and even ask a question at. A great way to stay in the know is to sign up to receive your members' newsletter or to check their website regularly. Okay, so now that I've given a brief overview of some of the tools you can use to build that cooperative relationship, I'd like to welcome Patty Govin, our New Hampshire State Lead Advocate, to the call. Patty will tell us about her personal experience with brain tumor advocacy in New Hampshire. Patty, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I have enjoyed working with the National Brain Tumor Society for 5 years now as a volunteer advocate, and I started back in 2012 at my first Head to the Hill. Was so overwhelmed, but then quickly learned that by getting to know the staffers, it's not that scary. The staffers that I initially met when we were living in Florida, I found out that they were writing the policy and the legislative legislations for the Congress people, and I thought, well, these are the people to get to know. And once I got to know the rep from Senator Rubio's office and Senator Nelson's office, I said, well, why don't you both get together and talk about this? And this was, regarding funding and the STAR Act, and realized then, and in 5 years, I have only met one representative, and I really feel that meeting the legislative, especially the health lead, legislative aides are the ones that are going to take the action. So we moved back to New Hampshire recently, and back, I think it was last year, went into Senator Shaheen's office here in Dover. We did the August recess, and I met this wonderful woman, Cara, at the local Dover office. And Cara was just really open, absolutely would support whatever we needed her to do. Just was a really wonderful connection. I also met at the time with Senator Ayotte's office, and also one of the other representatives. Well, now they all get reelected and you get to meet all new people. But the one common person was Cara at Jean Shaheen's office. And in fact, she's the one that I've been most impacted by. I did a meeting in January in the local office in Dover, and I could tell Cara was really, really anxious through the whole meeting. And I said, what's been going on with you? And she says, I've been just dying to share with you. My maid of honor was just diagnosed with a brain tumor, and I really, really, really want to help you. And whatever you need us to do, we can actually make that connection. So by making that connection with her, we've been able to, she signed on to the STAR Act. She's also sent us a request for funding for the appropriations for the Department of Defense. And it's just been like an open door at whatever ask that we've had. They've been very, very quick to respond. I've also developed a relationship with the local officer, Shea Porter. Shea Porter is a new state representative, and she is also as willing to help us out and will go the extra mile to sign on to the STAR Act or whatever it may be. Meeting with their local offices, I can now send in an email, ask how they're doing, how's the weather, gee, we've had great weather here. And I don't send them corny jokes like some people, but I do kind of just keep that connection open. And they are so much more willing. I could just stop by tomorrow on my day off and meet up with them, and they would totally, have an open door for me. It's been just really, really wonderful. They have supported us fully. All of the offices have had some connection with brain tumors or with cancer. And I always ask that when I first meet these new people, what's your story? What have you had happen to you? After sharing my story, my husband there on my left in that picture, he's survived a brain tumor for now 26 years. Very unusual. We are so fortunate that he's still with us. He's unable to speak and share his story, so I get to do all the talking. And just with him being present and understanding what deficits he has due to the brain tumor radiation, I certainly can link in our story with whatever asks that we have currently. I also started getting to understand the lingo as I've been around long enough, getting to know what's happening with their offices, what emails they're sending out, getting on their newsletters, finding out what's, a hot topic for them. They are always interested in hearing from their local constituents. And in fact, one thing that I heard recently was Senator Shaheen will not take any action on any legislation unless she hears from a New Hampshire constituent in regards to it. I thought that was pretty important. So what that told me is I want to let you know that your voice matters, your story matters, your impact from brain tumors matters, and they care. I just always thought that I was just like a bump on the log out here, and that's not the case. Once they get to know you, they really do go that extra mile to make sure that they can help us out. I'm on the Facebook pages, I'm on their Twitter account. I'm always tagging them, thanking them for, signing on, co-signing legislation or taking action on our behalf. Constant emails, maybe once a month I'll email them just to let them know what's going on. If I hadn't heard from them in regards to, let's say, the STAR Act, just keeping them informed of what's happening with us. We'll be getting ready to set up August meetings for August recess. And I'm waiting to hear back from each of the offices on when we could maybe actually meet the senators this time. That would be great to be able to thank them for all the work that they do. I do understand that not every office has that open door or is willing, but it's just a matter of sharing your story, getting your voice heard, and they will open up. They absolutely will. I believe that's all I needed to share with you. If you have any questions, reach out to me. They can share my contact info with you. I'd be glad to talk to anybody that wants to learn how to set up a meeting or get in touch.
Thanks, Patty. That was great. This is Lisa Peabody. Patty, that was great ideas on how to connect with your office. My name, I said, is Lisa Peabody, and I'm the Public Policy Associate here at the National Brain Tumor Society. And my role is actually to build bridges with all 535 members. But I started in this role really similar to everyone on this call. I was an advocate for, and still am an advocate with the National Brain Tumor Society, just a volunteer with a story. And I came to Head to the Hill, or one of our events that the Brain Tumor Society puts on, and they scheduled a meeting with my district. And so I'm in Maryland, and my congressman is Congressman Delaney. So it happened that at our meeting, he was there, which, as Patty mentioned, she's only met her member once. So it's more common to meet with staff. And we, as we were each telling our story, I mentioned I was from Bethesda, Maryland, and he said, I'm from Bethesda, Maryland. And we realized that we lived a mile apart from each other. So I was able to make this personal connection that we're kind of in the neighborhood together. I mean, literally a mile apart. I see his entourage, his black SUV sometimes on the street nearby, and I know that's him. And so I made a joke that, oh, well, we'll just have to go to the village, and there's a Starbucks, and I'll meet you there Sunday. And so, I've seen him a few times since then, and every time I mention about the Starbucks and the coffee, he knows right away my story and my connection. So it's a way that I've been able to connect and build a bridge with him. After the meeting, I recognized how really lovely his staff member was, and she did such a great job. I was anxious and nervous at this meeting, just like everyone else, and she did such a good job of kind of keeping everyone comfortable and making it a warm environment. And so I learned right away by this follow-up email with her that if I could spend time talking in the positive about their office, that she would like me and she would connect with me. So it was really simple to just share something positive, a positive experience I had during that meeting to try to develop the relationship. And over the next year, I reached out to her several times, sharing about some of the successes they were having in the office. And as Patty said, and Casey said, you can look on their website. Sometimes I look in the local paper, and you can see what they're doing. And so you can reach out in a positive way. But I always also include what it is that I'm interested in, because building a relationship, it's back and forth. It's you giving to them and then them giving to you. It's reminding them about your story and about the challenges that you face being connected to brain tumors. Well, one time I wrote this staffer, and I learned that she had moved on. And I thought, oh, I got to start all over again with a new staff. And so I set up this meeting, and I met with her. But it wasn't as easy the second time around. This staff member was a little more distant, and she wasn't as welcoming, and she didn't always write me back. And I dropped by the office, and I would hear that she was busy, and she sometimes I would just drop in to say hi, and it was frustrating, and I kind of didn't know what to do with that. And so I came up with the idea to reach out to a different office. So you can reach out to your office in DC, or you can reach out to your district office. And so I reached out to the district office, and I met a brand new staffer. In fact, I wanted the congressman to come to this fundraiser in the neighborhood, and that's why I was trying to reach out to the office, and my congressman was busy. So the staffer came, and I spent 2 hours with him at the baseball game, it's fundraiser baseball game for brain tumors, and we're really hit it off well. And I got an opportunity to talk a lot about brain tumors and hear about their office, and it really moved our relationship much further along. And soon after that, I wrote the office about their internship program, and a different person answered me, and the name was familiar. And I asked this person in the email, are you connected to a principal in the county schools? And she said, that's my dad. And so here again, I was able to make this personal connection and become somebody other than an email or somebody other asking for one more thing. I became a human being. I'm connected to a staffer's father. I'm connected to the staff. And when I come to the office now, either the district or the city office, they know me and recognize me. So as we mentioned, we talked about meeting with your member in August, because in August members leave DC and they spend time in their district meeting purposely with constituents. And so we'll be talking more about that in the next in our next webinar. But during that meeting, during August recess, you're hoping that since your member's in town, that you'll have an actual member meeting. And when I reached out to the person to try and get a member meeting this past August, it happened to be the same person who was the principal's daughter. So this whole connection. So I ended up having a member meeting, which is tough to come by. So now I've met with him 2 or 3 times. And I had a group of other Marylanders at that meeting. And during that meeting, he was very impacted by our stories. And the member was Dr. Delaney was just, moved by all of our brain tumor connections. And at the end of the meeting, he said, well, what can I do for you? How can I help? And so I had an idea. I asked him if he would do something called a floor speech. And that's where a member actually shares a story or shares legislation that is important to him or an issue that's important. And he shares it to the whole members of Congress. And he said, sure, I'll do a floor speech. And so in February, Congressman Delaney did a floor speech for the National Brain Tumor Society on behalf of NIH and NCI funding, and making sure that those institutions continue to be funded where there's tons of brain tumor research. So, it took time to develop this relationship, but you can see how it's become very fruitful. And just like Patty, I feel comfortable that I could walk into the office with an option, and I know that they would really consider it, because I'm the guy in the office that they know, like Casey mentioned. I'm the pal. There's somebody who they're comfortable with and they trust, and they work for me because of that. So what's next?
Next.
Great. So we mentioned this August recess. So as I said, your member is going to come home for most of August out of DC, and that's a good time where you can often have a meeting with a member. And if you don't have to wait till August, you can plan a meeting, at any time. And in order to kind of learn how to do that and the steps in the process, you'll wait and get from us our August recess toolkit. And so that we'll be sending that shortly. So you can do that in August, or you could do it next week if you want. You don't have to wait if you're, biting at the bit here because you're kind of excited now of making a new friend in Congress. This is the way to do it. As I mentioned, after the meeting, you have to continue to develop the relationship and to share successes and to remind them of what's important to you and remind them of your story and legislation that's happening. And you stay in touch, all throughout the year, not just one follow-up, but several follows up. And you'll see that you will become a mutually giving, relationship. As I said, you have to give in the relationship and then they give back. And that's how relationships work and that's how they thrive. So if you were inspired and wanted to work on this August recess meeting or participate in one, I would recommend you keep your eyes and ears posted for this upcoming web training. We're going to share a little about how to set that meeting up and what to do during a meeting, and that's coming on August 2nd. But you'll also be receiving the toolkit in your email. So thanks so much. I hope that we gave you some great ideas, and up into the chat corner, if you want, you can see that there's a place for you to type in some questions. And right now, I can wait a few minutes if people have ideas or questions or what they want to share.
Lisa, this is Lainey. I'm not seeing any questions yet, but again, thank you for sharing all of that, and to Patty as well. And as Lisa said, I think the next step will provide you this step-by-step guide with the August Recess Toolkit on how to schedule these meetings and begin that process of having a relationship with your congressional staff and members of Congress. But the next webinar will be focused mostly on what to do in that meeting. So you get to the door, what are you going to say and what are you going to do in that meeting? So hopefully to make you feel comfortable to go ahead and have those meetings. So if someone is asking that they weren't able to attend Head to the Hill this year, and is there a summary of the presentations made there that they can access? So what we're hoping to do with the August Recess Toolkit is to provide a lot of that information that we provided at Head to the Hill around the meetings and the issues that we'd be talking about. So we'll have that available to you. We'll have some documents that we also had at Head to the Hill that you can print out. And then during that August Recess training on August 2nd, we'll do almost an abbreviated training that we did at Head to the Hill to talk about what you actually do in a meeting.
That's great. Thanks, Lainey.
And since there's not another question, I'm happy to share this comment from one of our fantastic California advocates, just saying it's great to have these ongoing training sessions for different types of advocacy. So we'd also like to welcome anyone at any time. We have our email address for Casey and Lisa there. We want to welcome anyone at any time if you have different ideas of things that you feel like you need more training on. We're really committed this year, more than in the past, to offer these trainings and to give everyone a chance to learn online. So if you can't come to some of our events, you could still learn some of these things and really participate. So we want to make sure to offer that. So feel free at any time to give us feedback and what else you'd like to see in the coming months. So I'd say if there's no more questions, unless Casey or Lisa has anything, then we'll just thank everyone for being here. And again, feel free to let us know if you have further questions. Again, we do have one more question that I'll answer now. How do I become more knowledgeable about the issues that need advocacy? You can visit our website and at braintumor.org/advocacy. And you can find information there. You can also follow links to some of our action alerts. And as well, we'll also be sending out information with our August Recess Toolkit that gives you issue briefs on each one of the issues that we tend to advocate on with Congress. And again, during that August Recess training, we will touch on some of those issues that you'll be talking about during the meeting. So there will be a brief in-person, or I guess online training at that point.
Lainey, do we have any other questions coming in?
Guess just a final last call. If anyone has other questions, Feel free to type it in now, and we'll give you another second. If not, then I'll just turn it back to you, Casey.
All right, so unless you interrupt me, Lainey, I want to remind everybody, if you come up with a question after the webinar or think of something you'd like to ask or suggest, feel free to email us at advocacy@braintumor.org. And thank you for joining us, taking time out of your day to learn more about how you can build your relationship with your members of Congress. So thank you, and we hope to hear about some really successful August recess meetings in the next couple of months.